In the aftermath of rising radical Islamism and terror attacks, France will be inspecting close to 80 mosques for extremist links. France's Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin has said that the French government will be launching a massive and unprecedented wave of measures to combat religious extremism. And as the first step, 76 mosques will be inspected across the country. Darmanin tweeted to inform that 76 mosques are now suspected of separatism. In the coming days, checks will be carried out on these places of worship. If ever these doubts are confirmed, the mosques will be asked to close down. Out of these 76 places of worship, 16 in the Paris region and 60 in the rest of France will be particularly monitored and controlled. Last week, Gérald Darmanin ordered dissolution of leading Muslim rights group Collective Against Islamophobia in France as the French government seeks to continue to crack down on the Muslim groups. The CCIF was accused of consistently carrying out Islamist propaganda action for several years. French President Emmanuel Macron's government has responded to several deadly Islamist attacks in recent weeks with a promise to crack down on what some public officials have called the enemy within. Joining us live on the broadcast this minute is journalist Stéphane Debraze from Paris. Thanks very much, Stéphane, for speaking with us. Your assessment of what we are seeing playing out in Paris is, of course, is a continuation of the crackdown that we have seen over the last few weeks on part of the French administration.
Yes, indeed, it is. It started already in September when the government prepared a bill which is labeled Fight Against Separatism. And then a couple of weeks later, of course, the murder of the teacher in the north of Paris because of the fact that he showed cartoons of Mohammed. That actually was the start of a very hard language of many politicians, also of the government, against a part of the Muslim population in France. About 6 to 7% of the French are Muslim. So that's about, let's say 4 or 5 million people. And of course, it was seen in many parts of the world as a fight against Muslims in general. But the French government says that this is not the case, that it's really against extremism, Salafism, and Muslim groups who want to attack the Republic. The French president called them the enemies of the Republic, and he also warned them that they could not sleep quietly. Now the government is going to attack them. The French Home Minister, Gérald Darmanin, also spoke of a war against the mosques that are now being inspected over the next couple of weeks. So these are very harsh words, but indeed it makes many Muslims in France feel uncomfortable, and some of them are very angry as well.
Right. Tell us more about the process which ultimately involved the French government zeroing down on these specific 76 mosques.
Well, these mosques will be checked over the next couple of weeks. 16 of them will be checked really in the next couple of days. Amongst those mosques, there are mosques that already had to close. They either received an order to close and they didn't reply, or they just continued their activities without any license. So these mosques will be closed because the state did not check whether they were closed or not. Then others will probably receive either a warning or maybe they will have to adapt themselves to rules set by the French government. It is not really clear how this is going to happen, this inspection. Of course, the internal Secret Service has all kinds of files on these mosques, so they probably have reasons to believe that there are separatist activities taking place in these mosques. But the minister did not really specify how he's going to check and what will be the rules, what he is going to check.
So what you're mentioning earlier on about anger on the ground as well. So there is opposition to this move. Tell us more about how the French Muslim community has responded.
Well, first of all, it's very hard to talk to speak about the French Muslim community, because there are many Muslims who are not organized specifically. Many Muslims are secular, so they don't even go to mosque. They maybe sometimes respect or observe Ramadan and other holy days, but not necessarily very strict in their religion. But of course, they feel stigmatized, and this is nothing new. In 2004, so already 16 years ago, there was a bill introduced in France that outlawed any religious signs in public buildings and at schools. Now, of course, this was, according to the lawmakers, against all religious signs, because there's a very strict separation in France between the state and the church. But of course, it was also to tackle the presence of veils in schools. And you can see them everywhere in Europe, in schools and public buildings, but not in France. You will never see a civil servant with a veil or another religious thing to cover its head, because that's simply forbidden. Now, from 2004, more and more Muslims felt that they were set apart in French society, that they were not entirely French. And of course, there's also the rise of the extreme right. First, Jean-Marie Le Pen, then Nicolas Sarkozy was also pretty right, the former president. Then the party was taken over by the daughter of Jean-Marie Le Pen, Marine Le Pen. And Emmanuel Macron is in a bitter fight with these parties. And in 1 year and a half, there are new presidential elections. Marine Le Pen is really very close in the polls, even though it's very early, of Emmanuel Macron. And by aiming now this Muslim population, or saying that he's fighting against separatism, against Salafism, he's hoping to lure at least a part of the right voters who maybe now would like to vote Marine Le Pen. So it has also political reasons and not only security reasons.
All right, we're going to leave it there for the moment. Stefan, appreciate very much for joining us on the broadcast with those perspectives.